Lisa.
Hi.
Thank you so much for meeting with me again.
Thank you.
We are going to, this is our third time videotaping our conversations, even though we talk all the time.
All the time.
So I want to go back and think about our first video that we did. We talked about identifying what we thought we needed, and we talked about having a higher student engagement.
Yes.
So we've been working towards that. Then we met the last time and we talked about how we were going to go through the learning process. We talked about that checklist, we modified it, we talked about the different ways that we could model all of the different components, how we could get through it together. We talked about me modeling it for you, which we did.
Yes.
And then we did the co-teaching lesson, which was awesome.
Awesome.
So we're going to go through this final checklist. It's called the improved part of our coaching cycle.
Yes.
And I'm just going to go through and we're just going to have, one of those regular conversations that we've been having. So, since given the time that we have today, what do you think the most important thing for us to talk about is, or what do you really think is kind of on your mind, reflecting back on the co-teaching lesson that we had done?
Well, I think it went even better than I thought that it could go, which makes me really happy.
Good.
And I couldn't believe how well the students adjusted and really just their engagement improved so much from our co-teaching lesson.
Awesome.
So I think I definitely want something that I want to keep doing, the differentiating, the small groups, the more collaborative learning and phonics. And I think we talked about, maybe not every day doing it.
Right, yeah, because it might get a little difficult to do every phonics lesson like that.
Right, because it's scripted.
Mm-hmm.
But taking it to the next level with having them in groups and collaborating really made it way more fun for them, but they still were interested and stayed on task, so I was happy.
Awesome. So what I heard you say, the most important thing you want to talk about is you loved it and you want to take it to the next level.
Yes.
Which I underlined. So I think that's super important. I love that. I already have some ideas about that, so we'll kind of talk about that down here when we get to the next steps, because my gears are already turning. I have some ideas for continuing that. But so you already kind of started to talk about what you thought went well.
Yeah.
Do you want to elaborate on anything else that you thought went well throughout the grouping and the co-teaching and all the things we've tried?
Yeah, well, I think that when we talked about how we would group them, it was smart that we did mixed in some of our higher, more enriched kids with our struggling students, because they really were able to help model what we modeled and what you modeled and then what I modeled, and helped the lower kids that still kind of needed a push. So
right.
I thought that
so kind of what we saw with that strategy, I know I liked when we had that one group that was kind of on the side of the whiteboard.
Yes.
They had some of those more like outlying students from the video that we started with.
Yes.
And I thought it was really cool because those couple of students that we saw in the video that were just kind of like looking around were really engaged, and I felt like they got so much more from that lesson. So I thought that went really well too.
Yeah.
What are some of the things you think you've learned through this process?
Well, I've learned that there are ways to teach not so interesting, fun things. There's more exciting ways to teach boring things. And I learned that even if, like the kids that were when we first videotaped me and they were kind of like in La La Land and not paying attention, they thought it was boring, but now they realize that when they're actually doing it and it's, we planned it differently, that they can learn it. So
I thought that was fun too, because it was like, who was that one? She had the braids in.
Oh, Rose.
She was so cute. She was so into it, and she was like working with her group and keeping them and pulling them back in. I thought it was amazing.
Yeah.
What are some things that have surprised you?
Basically that it didn't take forever for us to plan it. It didn't take forever for us it was easier it went more smoothly than I thought that it would. Because when I first started here and they taught us the way to teach phonics, it was just, like I said, very scripted and very whole group. So I was kind of scared.
Well, I thought you did a really great job too. I thought it was going to be a little bit more difficult too, but it seemed to be very just kind of streamlined. Like we kind of made up our plan. I think going through all of those steps just kind of made it easier to go through all of the things we planned, and we saw the results that we were hoping to see. So I was really excited about it. I kind of Felt myself sitting up a little bit straighter too. What were some of the roadblocks, or what do you think the roadblocks that you ran into throughout that process was?
Basically, I think just, which I think is to be expected and what always happens, is that some of the lower kids still needed a little more. They kind of have it in their head that they can't do it. Mm-hmm. So they kind of tune out a little bit. And I liked that we had like Rose and Omar and the higher kids there to say one-on-one, just, okay, remember, focus here. No, remember, that's a skyline letter, right. And helping them.
You don't tap out the suffix, like.
Yes. Amazing.
It was so good.
It was a proud moment.
It was.
Yes.
All right, so some things I also wanted to tell you was, do you think, or do you want to keep using the strategy as it is?
Yeah. Yes, definitely.
Okay.
I kind of think I think we should teach everyone.
We should. We'll hold it in service.
Yes.
Yeah, we'll have a PD for it.
Yeah.
Do you want to revisit how we use the teaching strategy of cooperative learning and grouping?
Revisit it? What do you mean,
like kind of go back through it, or kind of re-talk about it, or reassess how we've done it the first time. Okay.
I love it.
Okay, perfect. Yeah. I liked how we had those mixed ability groups too. I thought it was really helpful. Like you said, having each of them kind of work off each other, because we can always kind of remind them and keep going through it. But when they get it from like a peer, I feel like it means more.
Yeah, and the one that's explaining it is benefiting from it too, because they're learning it better. Mm-hmm. And if we hadn't have mixed them, I don't think that my little ones would have done it.
Right, they wouldn't have grasped it as much. So do you want to change the goal of higher student engagement, or you think that that's still good?
No, I think it's great.
Okay, great.
Yeah.
So for the next step actions, I know we want to talk about kind of taking to the next level. Some ideas that I had was continuing to do those smaller collaborative groups, but I thought maybe bringing those foundation lessons, stay with me, into
singing.
No. We could sing though. Yeah. We could record it. Into kind of like Nearpod lessons, because I know we've gotten that PD on Nearpod, but bringing that foundations lesson into a Nearpod that we can kind of go through together, and then each group, I'm thinking, could have an iPad to follow us through the lesson we're doing whole group. What do you think?
That's crazy. They would love that.
And I think too, if we work together and kind of do the same thing, it really won't be one of those like scary moments, because we've already done the grouping. We'll reassess, see which groups or who we need to move around, and then we can just kind of implement this new technology piece to the foundations block.
That would be amazing.
Awesome.
Yeah.
All right.
I would love that.
Perfect. All right, so a couple tasks that I think will need to be done, and I want to ask your opinion as well. I'll find or create the Nearpod. Love it too. I'm thinking that way that it's easier for us to incorporate, and I'm thinking since we did last time, I modeled for you on a Tuesday, we'll do the same thing. We'll kind of touch base, figure out what lesson we want to do. And then I'll find the Nearpod or create it, and then we'll go through it together, just you and I on Tuesday, and then we can co-teach it again, or you can do it solo the following Wednesday.
Okay. Maybe we co-teach it the first time, and then maybe the following time I'm on solo, if you can.
Absolutely. There for you. So a couple of those tasks is the Nearpod. I just got to check to make sure I can co-teach with you, but I don't see any issue.
Okay.
Because my co-teacher's in here, so she should be fine. And then we're starting a new unit, correct?
Yes.
Okay, so maybe we just do new groupings based on the post-test that we find from the last unit.
Okay.
And see kind of how we do that. So we'll do the new groupings, the Nearpod, and we'll do the modeled lesson of just me and you before we meet next time. So we're saying like next week-ish. That way we can, since we're post-testing this week, and then we'll start next week. Perfect.
Okay.
Awesome.
Wow. So I wonder if, you know how on the flip charts we have the slides, the cards on digital. I wonder if they could do something like that too.
Probably like the magnet board thing.
Yeah.
I'm sure I can. All right, so let me make a note of that. So the magnet tiles.
Yeah.
But kind of putting it digitally onto the Nearpod.
Yeah. I don't know. Maybe.
Probably because then we won't lose all the tiles, but it's still the motion of moving the letters.
Yeah.
Awesome. Perfect. All right. One more question for you. On a scale of 1 to 5, how committed are you to this goal now of higher student engagement?
5.
5?
Yes.
Awesome. How come?
Because it's a horrible feeling when you're standing up there teaching a whole class, a whole group of kids, and you know you've lost any of them.
Right.
And, you know, foundations, or our phonics program, is so important in first grade that they have to learn it. It's not something we can skip. We
Right.
have to teach it. And when they're bored, it just feels awful.
It's hard. And I
Yeah.
think, too, another thing to think back of with being committed to this goal is we've already seen what a difference it made in that one lesson that we've done together. And I'd be interested to see, too, those post-test scores
They're better.
and how different they might be from previous units.
I know.
I'm excited.
I am too.
Awesome. All right, so we're going to meet next week on Tuesday. We'll do the model lesson.
Yes.
We'll co-teach on Wednesday, and we'll introduce that Nearpod into that Foundations Cooperative
wait.
Learning Groups.
Okay, that's awesome. Thank you
Awesome.
so much.
You're welcome.